tale of love, betrayal, and impossible choices. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Growing up, I pictured a life filled with love, stability, and a happy ever after. For a while, I even had it all, or so I thought. Life, however, has a funny way of throwing curveballs, and this story is one of love, temptation, and impossible choices. If you've ever faced something similar or have your own thoughts, leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to Silent Confessions for more. Now, let's dive in. It all began when I met Ryan. We were 22, fresh out of college, and ready to take on the world. Ryan had everything I'd ever dreamed of: charm, ambition, and just the right dose of kindness. We bonded over our love of old movies, spontaneous road trips, and our shared dream of owning a cozy cabin in the woods someday. Within 6 months, we were living together. A year later, during a romantic trip to Paris, Ryan proposed. At 24, I was young, but I was certain he was the one. Our wedding was magical, a dreamy outdoor ceremony followed by dancing under the stars. The first few years of our marriage felt like a fairy tale. We explored the city we'd just moved to, made plans for our dream cabin, and spent weekends curled up on the couch, lost in each other's company. Ryan had a way of making me feel like I was the center of his world. He'd surprise me with handwritten notes, little gifts, or spontaneous weekend getaways. I remember one particular evening, a chilly autumn night, when he set up a picnic under a canopy of golden leaves. We shared wine and whispered about our future. It felt like time stood still in those moments, and I truly believed we were unbreakable. But as time went on, things began to shift. It wasn't dramatic or sudden, just a slow, subtle transformation. Ryan threw himself into his work, chasing a big promotion, while I focused on building my career. Our once lazy movie nights turned into nights working late, side by side, barely talking. The spark that once burned brightly dulled into quiet companionship. I began to miss the little things, the way he'd stroke my hair absent-mindedly, the playful banter that filled our days, and the deep conversations we used to have. Then came Ethan, Ryan's nephew. He was only a few years younger than us, full of energy and a zest for life that was contagious. Ethan moved in temporarily while looking for a place of his own. He filled our home with stories of his travels and crazy adventures, whipped up gourmet meals, and mixed cocktails like a pro. For the first time in years, our weekends felt alive again, packed with spontaneous outings and late-night talks. Ethan's laughter was infectious, and his presence made our house feel vibrant. Ethan brought a fresh energy that reminded me of the early days of my relationship with Ryan. He'd drag us out for impromptu hiking trips, challenge us to board games late into the night, and share his playlist of songs he discovered on his travels. At first, I saw him as nothing more than a much-needed breath of fresh air. But gradually, things changed. I caught him looking at me a little too long. He always seemed to find a reason to sit next to me during movie nights, and every accidental brush of our hands sent an electric jolt through me. The way he said my name, softly, almost reverently, lingered in my mind long after the moments passed. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was nothing, but the thoughts lingered, and I hated myself for entertaining them. Ethan was Ryan's nephew, and I loved my husband. How could I even think such things? Then came the incident in the bathroom. It was a sweltering summer afternoon, and after a long, exhausting day at work, I craved nothing more than a cold shower. As the water streamed over me, I closed my eyes, letting the day's tension melt away. That's when I heard the bathroom door creak open. Assuming it was Ryan, I jokingly invited him to join me. But the voice that replied wasn't his. It was Ethan's. My eyes shot open, and there he was, shirtless, beads of sweat glistening on his chest from his evening run. For a long moment, we just stared at each other, the air between us crackling with tension. He stammered out an apology and quickly left, shutting the door behind him. I stood there, heart pounding, overwhelmed by a whirlwind of emotions. My cheeks burned with embarrassment, but beneath it was something far more dangerous, an undeniable pull I couldn't ignore. The days that followed were a blur of avoidance and overthinking. I tried to steer clear of Ethan, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get that moment out of my head. Then, one sleepless night, I crept downstairs for a glass of water. Ethan was there, nursing a whiskey. The dim light of the kitchen cast shadows across his face, making him look older, more serious. Before I could retreat, he spoke. "We need to talk about what happened," he said, his voice low and steady. I played dumb, but he wasn't buying it. He moved closer, his eyes intense. "You know exactly what I mean. There's something between us. I feel it, and I know you do too." I should have denied it, pushed him away, and walked back upstairs to my husband. But instead, I kissed him. It was like a dam breaking, years of repressed emotion flooding out all at once. The taste of whiskey on his lips and the warmth of his hands on my waist sent my mind reeling. What started as a stolen moment quickly turned into a full-blown affair. We met in secret, each encounter more charged and passionate than the last. But the guilt was unbearable. I was betraying Ryan in the worst way, yet I couldn't stop myself. Ethan's presence was intoxicating. He had a way of looking at me that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. Every stolen glance and whispered word added fuel to the fire burning between us. Yet, with every moment of passion came the heavy weight of guilt, a constant reminder of the life I was tearing apart. I found myself longing for the nights we'd sneak out to stargaze, or the secret notes he'd slip into my hand when no one was watching. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once. After months of torment, I decided to end things with Ethan. But fate had other plans. Ryan had to leave town suddenly to care for his ailing mother, leaving Ethan and me alone. The temptation was too much, and our affair continued. Weeks turned into months, and the weight of my lies became too heavy to bear. I knew I couldn't go on like this. In the end, I confessed everything to Ryan. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, and as expected, it shattered him. We decided to part ways. It wasn't easy, but I had to follow my heart, as reckless as it had been. Ethan and I are still together, navigating the complexities of our relationship. The road hasn't been smooth, but we're trying to build something real out of the chaos we created. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have risked it all for love or tried to save the marriage? Let me know in the comments, and if this story resonated with you, please subscribe to Silent Confessions and turn on notifications for more. Thank you for listening to my story. I'll see you in the next video.